This is the Panasonic 100-300mm G Vario lens Mark II. That means that before this one, there was a different iteration, a first iteration, which I don't think was as good, and I am glad that they've made a Mark II because this is a good lens, especially for the price point that it sits at. Before I give you this short review, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to my channel. Right now, my goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm only on 62 or 65. This channel is growing, and slowly. If you subscribe to my channel, it'll tell the algorithm to share my videos with like-minded people like yourselves. It'll also encourage me to make more videos just like this to share with you on a regular basis. Let's talk about first impressions. The first thing that I notice about this lens is it's made out of plastic. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It really depends on what you need. If you know that you're kind of run and gun shooter, maybe you're carrying lots of equipment, having a plastic lens can save you a little bit of weight. And when you have lots of lenses, or lots of cameras and lenses, and lots of equipment as well, it will make a difference. And so that's just something to think of. But it is something that I noticed, and for me, I like things that feel premium, especially when I'm paying a lot of money for it. I want to know I have a premium product, and having an all-plastic lens doesn't really give me that premium feeling. That being said, it is heavy, and that does make it feel like it's a premium product. It is a heavy lens. I suspect that that's largely due to the fact that it has optical image stabilization. Now, there is a difference between optical image stabilization and electronic image stabilization, but this has mechanical components inside of it which basically control the stability of the image. One thing I've noticed though is that this rattles. I don't want to rattle it too much, but I do suspect that that is the OIS mechanical components inside this lens, and so that does worry me a little bit, but overall, it hasn't failed me. It continues to perform really well, even a year later after owning this lens. Something else I noticed is that it's all black. Now, I actually like that. I think that it gives it quite a cool look. I like it. The writing on the side is kind of in grey. It has that iconic red dot there, so you know exactly where to fit this into your camera to screw it in. Yeah, but I like the all black look that it's going for. Something else that I notice is that it has a metal back to it, and that makes it feel more like a premium product. You will get some lenses that have plastic backs, and I always worry about them snapping, especially something this heavy. I mean, this weighs more than my actual camera, and so when I screw this onto my camera, I don't actually screw this on, I screw my camera onto the lens, and that's because I am worried that, you know, if I keep holding it by the camera, the weight of this is going to bend something, dent something, or crack something, and knowing that this is metal just makes it feel a lot more premium, and it also makes me feel more confident as a photographer and a videographer. This lens has two rings around it. So it has one rubber ring here and a plastic ring here. The rings provide a lot of resistance, and this can be extremely problematic when it comes to pulling in manual focus. Now, I'll talk a lot more about that in my kind of longer format video, which will still be a review about this lens. But it's a shame that this gives as much resistance as it does, because honestly, I feel like if there was just less resistance around these rings, oh my goodness, I feel like we would be so much closer to almost having a cinema grain lens. Maybe not with the glass, but the mere fact that it would have, you know, like some easy kind of focus pulling ability would really just make this lens stand out so much more from all the other lenses out there. And what I don't understand is why they managed to do it so well with this lens, which is a 25mm prime. I mean, it's so smooth, it's buttery smooth, and I don't even have to pull that far to pull the focus. And so I've used this in commercial shoots before and stuff, and I love it. I think it's a great lens. It's a shame that they couldn't do it for this lens, but it is what it is. and we have what we have. Straight away, what you'll notice is that it has a switch for the optical image stabilization. That's great because I can turn it on and off really easily, and I can even turn it on whilst it's filming. So if I've forgotten to turn it on, I can do that even whilst it's rolling, and it'll do it. It won't start a new video. It'll just kind of continue in the video that's already running. Now, you will see the lens here. This isn't actually the lens. This is an ND filter. So I'm just going to take that off. This lens has a 67mm thread. So if you want to get an ND filter or a polarizer, really anything that you can screw on to the top of this lens, you will need it to be 67mm. I remember when I bought my first polarizer, or rather my first ND filter, it was actually for this lens, and I completely forgot to check the thread size, and I ended up buying something that was far too big. So, lesson learned, stupid me. Overall though, so far, in terms of first impressions, I have to say I'm actually quite happy with it. It feels substantial, it does feel premium when I hold it, and the image quality is brilliant. Take a look at this. So as you can see, this lens provides excellent image quality. And just so you know, I was using an 8-bit camera, which means I was using 8-bit color science, which means the color profile isn't really that deep. And this gave me fantastic color. It's kind of that iconic Panasonic look that this lens gives you, and I love that. And the colors pop. And to use a lens like this on an 8-bit camera and still get these excellent results, I think is great. And I think that this really kind of sets this lens apart from perhaps other lenses out there. So how does it perform? Well, as you can see, it does what it's supposed to do, and it does what it says on the tin. It has optical image stabilization, and it works. It's not the best because the image stabilization hunts. So even if you're using the camera and this lens on a really premium tripod with fluid head dampening and blah, 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 when you come to a stop, the image kind of rocks left to right a little bit, and that can be really jaunting and really quite frustrating. So I have found that the best results are using this lens in manual mode on a tripod. The quality of this lens is so good that I would much rather use the lens without the optical image stabilization turned on. I'll turn it off and I'll just use it on a really good tripod. And it's so good that it works. The footage is really, really steady, even when the OIS is turned off. And that gives me a lot of confidence as a photographer and a videographer. As I mentioned, this lens has autofocus. It's not the best, but I guarantee you it isn't the worst. It does what it is supposed to do. That being said, you will notice a lot of hunting, especially if you are using it on kind of the older Panasonic cameras. Using it on a LUMIX G7, a G6, a GH5, you're going to notice issues with autofocus. Maybe not so much for photography, but definitely for videography. This lens has plenty of pros and plenty of cons. The price point it sits at makes it a really likable lens because it actually gives you a lot of really nice features. For instance, really good image quality, optical image stabilization, autofocus. These are all really, really nice. And it's subtle. compact, really inconspicuous, it's not bulky, and this gives you the equivalent of a 200 to 600 millimeter focal length at a full frame. So for something like that to come in such a small, compact package, I think Panasonic has done an excellent job here. They've done a really, really good job with this lens. If you buy it secondhand, you're getting a fantastic deal because it sits at about £382. Or at least that's what I paid for this lens in, I think it was mint condition. On the other hand, if you buy it brand new, it will cost you $499, and that is not a bad deal still. If you are a hobbyist and, you know, if you're just using it because you have a hobby and it brings you joy, buy it by all means brand new or secondhand. If you are using it for, let's say, your business, I would say probably stick to the lower end of things because ultimately it works well and it'll save you some cost. Even secondhand, even if it has a couple of blemishes on it, a couple of marks, who cares? It's superficial. As long as it does what it's supposed to do and there aren't any cuts or, like, you know, cracks on the glass or anything, as long as it does what it says on the tin, I think that buying it secondhand will probably save you a bit of money and hopefully it won't hurt your pockets. This is a resilient lens. I've knocked it, I've dinged it, I've banged it, and it all works perfectly fine. On the other hand, there are cons. For instance, it's not weatherproofed, which means I'm not going to use this in torrential downpour. I'm not going to use this in really adverse weather conditions. It can be difficult to pull in manual focus. This lens requires a premium tripod in order to get the best results. The optical image stabilization and the autofocus on this lens do not work well together. It is like an extremely toxic relationship. I don't know what's going on, but they don't seem to like each other and they just don't really work well together. For the best results, I would definitely say use this lens in manual mode with the optical image stabilization turned off on a decent tripod. As long as it has fluid head dampening, you should be fine. That's the end of my short review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. If you have, please leave a comment in the comment box below. If I've got something wrong, please tell me, correct me, because it really helps moving forward. And if you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share. It goes a long, long way. I think this is a good place to leave it. So, my name is Michael. Thank you for watching. Welcome to my channel, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.